Keyframes can be used in a number of different ways for both simple edits and more in-depth approaches. In today's video, we're looking at those basic editing keyframes within your timeline. So let's start with the simple stuff, zooms and fades. You could drop a fade onto your timeline from your effects, or you could create a fade with keyframes. Zooming in and out could be used to focus on a certain area of a shot, but mostly it just helps to add a bit of movement, especially to something static. So for example, on this title, I've got a keyframe set on the zoom and the position. So between those 2 points, the start and the end of this clip, it has a keyframe movement. Within Premiere Pro, you have the stopwatches. This is the version of turning on and off keyframes. So instead of clicking the diamond shape like you have in DaVinci Resolve, within here you can just click the stopwatch and it will create a keyframe. And then as you move along, you can create more keyframes. You don't have to click on it, you can just move it, and it will automatically create a keyframe as you go. Let's not forget rotation as well. So my logo here at the end of this edit usually rotates at the same time as scaling up. So you can see within the inspector in here, the rotation angle and how it changes over time. And you can also see the zoom has keyframes because I always make it go slightly bigger before it goes smaller. So it's like a bump effect. Also, don't forget to ease in and ease out on your keyframes. So when you select them, you can right click and just go ease in, ease out, depending on which keyframe it is. The speed of a clip can be bumped, reversed, or just thoroughly messed around with thanks to keyframing. They're slightly different within different editing software. So within DaVinci Resolve here, I have changed the speed of this Dubai clip. If I were to bring up the retime controls, which is also Control R, you can see here that it starts off at 100%, then it goes into 75% speed, then 400 and over 1000. It speeds up towards the end before it goes into a transition. You can handle these within the inspector where you can go to speed change. If you just wanted to change the one clip as a whole in the speed, or if you wanted just to reverse it, you can just play around with these settings here. If you wanted to play with the retime controls, as I showed you earlier, you can right click, go to retime controls, and that's where you can add in. So you would go across to an area that you wanted to add in a keyframe and you would click on this section here. So this is like DaVinci's version of a keyframe for your speed changes. You can make bumps and ramps in here, and you can change the speed settings of those parts. Even though a lot of these keyframes within your edit sequence are set for your clips, just don't forget that you can also add most of these options onto your title tools. So any titles that you might add onto the top line, you do also have position zooms, rotations, you do have keyframing options for even drop shadow and things like that. This obviously alters depending on the editing software you're using, and your normal settings for that title tool as well, like cropping. Any of these options, the opacity, you can change your keyframes if you wanted to. So you could really create some very dynamic keyframed titles to go with your footage. It's not all keyframing picture. You can keyframe almost anything. Our next videos are also about keyframing, so be sure to like and subscribe.